What is up, mofos? JJ back here from Run Pure Bets live, talking the college basketball slate for March the 13th. Going fully solo today, kind of like Steven Glansberg. You super bad folks know what I'm talking about. Now, I know that I said to some of you maybe 12:30, but ultimately on Twitter today I said 12:30. Had a little bit of running around to do this morning. I know, cue the tiny violin. All right, so first of all, Garbi Muguruza finally takes home a ship in women's tennis. Been quite a ride for her in 2021. She's been an absolute cash cow. I'm not sure if you guys follow women's tennis, but as long as it wasn't a finals, you could basically bet her to go 2-0. And it just cashes at a ridiculous rate. Anyway, kudos to her. Congrats on finally being able to grab a win in one of these tournaments. She's literally just finished that match about 5 minutes ago. All right, so back to college basketball, right? Back on track. Have about 20 total games today. I know one or two of them already started. What should be a fun-filled Saturday, college hoops. One thing I want to notate to you guys about these conference, specifically the championship games, maybe even the semifinals, because I know there's a few more tomorrow, championships, is that you typically get a lot of under steam in these games. Maybe you guys have noticed it already. Maybe if you were looking at lines last night and then today, you're probably seeing a lot of these games getting some serious under steam. That's typically common for these types of championship games. I know that there's some good records, probably somewhere in the mid 60% area for unders in these conference championship games. The one thing I'll say, though, this year specifically has been noticeably different in regards to overs and unders. It's hard to blame it all specifically on no fans or limited fans. But scores have been up recently, or not up recently, up especially in these conference tournaments and all season long, to be honest. I mean, I said recently on Twitter, bet unders at your own risk in college basketball right now because it's just been wild. I mean, points just piling up late in games, teams not putting the brakes on, despite having double-digit leads late. Tempos have been faster. There's been a lot of lazy defense. No truer testament to the lazy defense than the Baylor Bears, who returned from a lengthy pause and looked like an entire different team defensively afterwards. If you had bet on every team total over for each team Baylor had played since their return, you'd be a robust 7-0. It's not an anomaly. I mean, this Baylor team just looks different defensively, especially if you watch their games. Goes to say, whether it's the pauses between teams, the no fans, seemingly some heavy legs on defense, all in all, it's attributed to totals rising. So just a little heads up for you guys if you're just blindly kind of betting unders today. All right, so look, let's kind of dig into these. What's happening, folks? I'll look at some folks chiming in. Bobby, Kyle, Dustin, Leonard. My show prediction, JJ's best bet has a plus in front of it. Holden's best bet comes from the Big Ten. Problem is, Leonard, Holden didn't feel a Saturday show was important for him. Maybe these Saturday shows are below him. I'm just kidding. But ultimately, we have two shows, me and Holden tomorrow. Going to be on tomorrow at 11 in the morning. Eastern, and then we have a show at 8 o'clock where we're going to, kind of give you some preview of the bracket and the selections and the breakdowns, if you will, as well. Call it a rough draft video, if you will. All right, so remember, folks, punch in. Give your first name, last name, social security number, non-erect dick size. I mean, this is just standard protocol in here. Folks should really know this by now. So I'll definitely take questions as they pop in. What's up, Benjamin, Bobby, Hef? So if you just, pop in with questions, I'll try to get to them as I'm going through some of these games. And then, but I think it's probably best I just start with my best bet, especially for some of you who just want to get in and get out, if you will. For me, Cincinnati, plus the 4 bones versus Wichita. Okay. I know I'm seeing some 3.5, and that's okay too. Just no 3. Okay. 3 would be, it wouldn't be favorable anymore. So look, I really don't care about Cincy's SMU win yesterday. SMU was off a long layoff, and they just didn't look like themselves. I'm not looking at this game, Cincy's going to ride this big momentum upset against SMU. SMU, first of all, is a bit overrated anyway, and they were coming off, like I said, that huge layoff. Speaking of overrated, though, this Wichita State team, defensively specifically, this team is severely overrated. They don't force turnovers. They are awful defending the offensive glass. Sure, they're good from an effective field goal percentage defensively, but think about all the extra possessions they typically have to go up against. South Florida is no greater example of this. South Florida didn't really turn the ball over, and South Florida is a team that turns the ball over a ton. South Florida is good on the offensive glass. They were able to pile up extra possessions there. And Wichita State just seemingly had this strategy that we're just going to let South Florida shoot wide open 3-pointers all game. Now, sure, South Florida's numbers were a bit egregious from beyond the arc. But, I mean, if you let teams consistently shoot wide open threes, I mean, even teams, even mid-major teams that aren't even going to think about dancing this season will bang down wide open threes. South Florida hit them yesterday and kept it close, almost upset. I'd argue they should have upset, which would have been nice because it would have been nice for this matchup. But ultimately, refs kind of seemingly helped out Wichita a bit late there with some 50-50 calls in their favor. Okay, so I've backed this Cincinnati group quite a bunch down this stretch of the year. And my thing is, as long as Cincinnati doesn't play a team that forces a lot of turnovers and who isn't all that great defending the glass, this team's going to hang around with all these extra possessions that should pile up on their end. If you're looking for a player-by-player breakdown in this game, it's just not my thing. I'm more a numbers guy as far as these teams go and how they break down with one another. Now, sure, don't get me wrong. Certain players, of course, matter, especially in small samples. Like we'll get to Livers from Michigan in a bit. But ultimately, as a whole, for me, I'm more of a game-by-game breakdown type of call it capper. I look at the numbers and I kind of trust that. For me, this number should be Wichita State about sub-1 or sub-1. So I'm happy to grab 4 bones here with Cincinnati as a little bit of a 3-point edge. But again, I'm a little biased with my own numbers because I have Wichita State overrated. Wichita State's going to have to nail their threes at a high clip in this game and have a huge edge in free throw disparity, which is possible. Cincinnati does foul quite a bit. For them to be able to run away with this game, because like I said, Cincinnati should be able to pile up extra possessions, and among many scripts should be able to give Wichita a run today. I also continue to say John Brennan is an excellent coach, and he's no stranger to these big tournament games from his Northern Kentucky days. So look, Cincinnati plus the 4 bones. What's up, Kyle? Kenny? Morgan State Norfolk goes off. I'll be honest, Kenny, I didn't dig into that game at all. Those are teams I haven't looked at all year. If to me it was just a pass, I'd hate to put you in the wrong direction there. It's just not a conference I've bet, and that conference tournament game, it really could go either way. I know Norfolk's basically the cream of the crop in that conference, though. Morgan State's been playing better, but ultimately I'll be staying away from that one. All right, so a few other games which are early. Want to give you some brief notes on. So Tennessee, Bama. Okay, it's a game to me that I'm very interested in the pace. So I'm not going to really like anything pre. But it would be a game I'd be interested to jump in live on the total. It played fairly quickly the first time, despite the low score. And you kind of get that, right? Bama always plays fast. And Tennessee is no stranger to running with teams that want to run. But these are literally the number 2 and number 4 defenses as per KenPom in the country. So look, nothing easy to be expected on either side offensively. And that kind of showed in the first game out, right? It was pretty low scoring. I think it was like 71-63, something like that. Very low scoring. Now this total is... Hold on, let me refresh. This total here, Bama, Tennessee, 141. So it's starting to kind of climb back up late with some late steam. It's just not a spot I want to bet pre. It would be something, like I said, if I'm seeing these two teams run up and down the floor and if they're missing shots, it may be a spot where I want to jump in on the over because these as good as these defenses are, shots will begin to fall in this game. And if pace is fast enough, it's going to leave a very forgiving shooting percentages. Overall, though, at 3.5, I'm going to lean with Bama, but it's just not that favorable on my end. I'm not going to be betting it. And it's not going to be a spot where, like, if Bama goes down like 8 to start, jumping on Bama live. But the total is going to be something I'm really looking forward to, again, purely based on pace. If these two play slow, there's no way this game goes over. But if these two play really fast, it's going to be forgiving enough to hop over this sub 140 number. All right, so Michigan, Ohio State. For those that watch these vids by now, should know that I cannot stand the Big Ten this year. I mean, I'm being honest. I think I've made a total of 1 or 2 bets on the Big Ten all season. And it has more to do with, I like to get a feel for these games early in conference play to kind of see if I can find some kind of popping numbers that make sense. Big Ten was just nothing that I saw that made sense numbers-wise to back any team in really any situation. Now, teams early on in conference play played really well at home. So you could argue, oh, well, just play bad numbers, just lay bad numbers with these teams at home, and you'll be money. And ultimately it was, especially early, mid, even a little bit towards the end of the year, but that kind of leveled off towards the end. But ultimately, it just hasn't been fun betting the Big Ten. If you've made money betting the Big Ten, look, kudos to you, but I can't imagine too many people have. There's just been a lot of variance in that conference. And look, I'm not somebody who can't stand the Big Ten in the form of I don't think they're talented teams. I'm not talking from a talent perspective. I'm just talking the way these teams beat each other up in conference play just hasn't been fun to bet on. I truly believe if matchups draw right, we could see 8 Big Ten teams in the Sweet 16. But again, they'd have to draw out right. But I just think this Big Ten conference is very, very deep. And look, for me, just been a little bit of too much wackiness in this conference, and especially in this conference tournament. I feel like wackiness has been even elevated more. Now, as far as this game, Isaiah Livers is out for Michigan. It's such a big blow for this team and their national championship aspirations. It just gives another leg up on Gonzaga. So for me, overall in this game, I don't want to get too far off the track. Overall in this game, I lean the under at 143. First game played out a real crazy score. I think it actually played into almost the 190s. But I'd figure this game plays differently. The pace was about what I'd figure it would have been, okay, on a per possession basis. But these teams shot the lights out of the ball. Game like this, I'd figure it plays a little tighter. Fam, no, you didn't miss the play. Let me put it in here. Oops, not plus E. Imagine. It's Cincy, fam. Okay, so for me, I lean the under in that game at 143. I don't love it. And this would be a spot that if the game started out really quick, like if you got 20 points in the first 5 minutes and this total shot up to like 148, to me, I really like that. If you're going to targeting a live spot. And again, these conference games, these lines are sharp. Like you don't need to pre-bet everything. Like you don't need to be engaged in every single game pre-game and I need to bet this, I need to bet this, I need to have action here. Look, it's a fun time of year, sure. But at the same time, you still got to find favorable numbers, right? If this game shoots out quick 20 in the first 5, definitely going to want to jump in on the under there. Again, figure it'll be sub 148, 149-ish. Okay, so LSU, Arkansas. For me, over spot. Okay, now it's not a spot. I want to be clear because I don't want people to think, oh, you bet this. No. My best bet's Cincy. Okay, the other stuff's just me kind of giving you where I have strong leans. And I know I'm not somebody's going to like, oh, if my leans go 8-0, I'm going to start pounding my chest. No, I'm just giving you guys my perspectives. You guys can bet them. You guys cannot. I bet specifically Cincy today. Now, as far as LSU, I'm just looking at what the live line is. Okay, so I'm seeing 162.5. Yeah, for me, it's an over spot. Now, I know these two teams. Here's what I know about these two teams because I was on this game over a few weeks ago when they met up. And I think the over actually was it the same number? It might have been 163.5. Either way, it was around this number. These two teams shot like complete garbage in that game. I mean, pace was just insane. Okay, on a per possession basis, these two teams were well below season average as far as numbers go. Now I know, well, Arkansas actually was probably right on par with it. LSU though shot like absolute garbage, and they still ended up with 78 points. It just goes to show you how forgiving this pace is between these two teams. And I know we argue for elevated defense and playing a total this high in a conference tourney game this deep is probably makes you a bit head scratching, right? But look, Arkansas is often an 80-point machine, and LSU gives up nearly 80 points to every potent offense they play. LSU in that first matchup, because I watched that whole game, I had money on it. And I actually think it was a Twitter play. LSU had countless great looks from three. They just weren't sticking. I'd expect a few more of them to stick. And look, we know what Arkansas you're going to get with them. You're going to get a team that draws contact, gets to the free throw line, converts from the free throw line. LSU's not as good at getting to the free throw line, but again, another team that converts when they get there. Scary high total for a conference game. I get it. But I have this as a strong lean over. And just the opposite of the Michigan game, if this is a game that maybe starts slow, maybe with some nerves, which I wouldn't think that would be the case. But if it did, where you get maybe like 12 or 14 points in the first 20 minutes, bang that live over at 158, 159.5. Really like that spot. Okay, so Illinois. So Steve asking about Illinois. I mean, I don't touch the Big Ten. So God bless you if you do. It should be a fun matchup with them in Iowa today. But ultimately, I guess you'd argue maybe the under. But I mean, if you're asking my thoughts on Illinois, I don't want to lay 4 here against Iowa. I know Iowa's a bit overrated. KenPom loves them, but for me, it's just a stay away spot for me. Those are two teams I haven't bet on at all year. Not going to really start in the semifinals of this conference tournament. Okay, so Houston, Memphis. Fun game recently between these two, right? And they meet again here. Houston could not find the bottom of the net in that first game, despite great looks. They dominated the glass, drew a ton of contact. Houston's team total is an overlook for me. I wanted this to be in like the high 60 area, like 68, 69.5, so that basically if they scored 70 would be a winner. But at 70.5, it is tough to warrant for me in this spot. I know it's only 2 points of a difference, but remember, folks, that's your edge, right? Your 2 to 4 point area, 3 points specifically, that's your edge. Okay, so for me, it's a fair line. It would be a spot where Houston would have to start slow, and I want to jump in on them live. The main reason is because Memphis speeds the game up. Okay, they play fast, and look, I get it. They're good defensively on a per possession basis. I know KenPom loves Memphis's defense, but I watched this team play, and it's like they're just not as good as KenPom thinks. As far as like, and I get the numbers are what they are, but just watch this team play defense. Like I feel like they get bailed out on a lot. They get bailed out on a lot of missed open shots. And Houston's just not the team to screw around with stuff like that against. It worked the first time out. Houston didn't shoot that well. I think this time goes a bit differently. But again, at the number. I can't play it. Would be a spot I'd want to jump in live. Did you talk Tennessee Bama? Yeah, I briefly talked Tennessee Bama. Fam. Arkansas team total over. So I don't mind it. My only thing is like I'd almost prefer the full game over versus Arkansas's team total over, because if Arkansas is going to get over 83, unless they just rout LSU should get you to the rest of it for the game to go over. So for me, I know they're kind of correlated, but I do think that LSU helps us more this time around than the last time around. So I guess maybe you could argue I'd prefer LSU's team total over instead of Arkansas's team total over, if that makes sense. But overall, I would prefer the full game over. Now, Tennessee Bama, yeah, just watch the game. I'm interested in the pace because I'm interested if Tennessee really decides let's try to really slow this team down. Because if they do, one thing I want to talk about pace, because I gave out a play on this channel on Thursday with what was the play on Thursday? It was such a tilting game. Imagine me not remembering it. Maybe somebody in the chat remembers it. I'm trying to think. Fuck, what was that play that I gave out? Either way, I know the pace was so tilting for me. Steve, it was a game you bet. I think it was it a game you bet under? Now I can't even think about it. And the reason I wanted to bring it up because it's correlated. San Diego State. Okay, so San Diego State plays Wyoming, and Wyoming is a team that always speeds the opposing team up. Okay, it's just the type of offense they run. They fire up threes early in the shot clock. They clearly made a strategy decision. The head coach, it was a great one. Okay, we're going to slow this game down to a complete crawl. Our main ball handler is going to hold the ball at the top of the key for the first 20 to 25 seconds of every shot clock, and we're going to try to beat San Diego State on a per possession basis. We're going to double team both their scorers, Mitchell and I forgot the other guy's name. We're going to double team both their scorers every time they touch the ball, and we're going to force someone else to beat us from outside. Literally, these other dudes from San Diego State were getting wide open looks from three. Weren't converting, and then Wyoming would just sit there with the ball for 20, 25 seconds, much like UVA does. But even UVA would move the ball around early in shot clocks. Wyoming wasn't even moving the ball; they were just draining the shot clock for 20. It was so tilting. And San Diego State still only was like 8 or 9 points away in a pace that was an absolute worst case scenario. But it brings me up to this specifically. Because if Tennessee decides to take somewhat of a game plan of our best bet to win this game is to truly slow Alabama down. And if Tennessee starts holding the ball for long periods of time, this over's got no shot, right? So that's what I want to look for. I want to look for what Tennessee's game plan is going to be early. I wouldn't expect too many 180s to happen in this game as far as like strategy, but that's what I'm interested in the Bama-Tennessee game, because if Tennessee plays super slow, it's going to become an issue for the over. But if Tennessee plays super slow, makes the under quite favorable as well. So just something of note. Oklahoma State, Texas. I know somebody asked about it in here before. So first of all, what a game from Cade yesterday and that Oklahoma State bunch. Ultimately, this is a team that's live, right? I mean, live. And when I say live, I mean live for the actual bracket. I mean, this team's got shooters. They got good rebounders. Their problem is their defense, right? But they play so fast that they get so many easy buckets in transition. I mean, I don't know what their fast break points were yesterday, but there was like easily, from what I watched, I want to say 15 to 20 fast break transition layups. And this is against a team in Baylor that I know that hasn't been as good defensively, but this is as good as a transition defense that exists or that should exist in college basketball. And Oklahoma State was just so fast. This team is just, as far as pace goes, I think they even said it yesterday that Baylor was pulling guys because they were exhausted from running up and down with Oklahoma State. So this is a team that's not going to be exactly fun to play in the tournament or come tournament time. The problem is they are a little bit too reliant on Cade Cunningham hitting tough jumpers. He hit quite a few big threes yesterday late, which made a big difference. How often can that happen? Especially over a run of, call it 6 games in 3 weeks. But ultimately, as far as the game tonight, so Texas isn't going to slow this game down, right? So, I mean, they're, under shock smart, they're going to try to press. Oklahoma State has a huge turnover issue, okay? And Texas turns the ball over or forces turnovers a ton, okay? I am a little concerned about that as far as if I'm going to want to back OK State in the spot because when you talk about Texas's ability to pile up extra offensive boards and they force a ton of turnovers, it would mean Oklahoma State would have to shoot the lights out tonight to win comfortably here. Because again, I'd figure Texas is going to pile up extra possessions in this game. So, maybe you argue the over. I mean, Oklahoma State's just been an over machine. But if I dig a little deeper, and I'm not sure let me look at what the current line is. Texas's team total over may actually wind up being a better look. I mean, just because Oklahoma State's going to speed them up, Texas should have all these extra possessions. Now, I know what's interesting is like you look at Texas's raw numbers, and they don't really force a whole lot of turnovers. But to me, there's certain things that like this team is like underrated. They're underrated in that category specific because I know like on a per possession basis they don't force enough turnovers, but they do play fast enough where they speed the game up and ultimately turnovers usually wind up happening. Now this team's also very good again on the offensive glass, and they're very good at defending assists per field goals made. Which look, at the end of the day, Oklahoma State is a team that takes a lot of tough jumpers, but for the most part they do set up their guys pretty well with jump shots, especially Cade. Cade is so when he gets double teamed. I mean, he's probably the best in college basketball. When he gets double teamed and making the right decision with the basketball, he should really be good at the next level in the NBA. There's just a lot of things about him. I know his raw numbers aren't like all that excellent, but ultimately he ain't gonna be getting double teamed in the NBA. So he should project well at the next level. But as far as this game, like I said, I would think personally there'd be some value on Texas's team total over with the ability to pile up some extra possessions for them. And Oklahoma State's certainly not going to slow this game down. Now, when these two played the first time out, I know it played relatively low scoring. I know it went to double overtime. That was why you saw a little extra padding on the numbers. But this really was because of a very slow second half. But look at these numbers. I mean, look at these shooting numbers. I mean, Texas shoots about for the game. Texas for the game shoots under 30%. I mean, they're 5 for 35 from three. I mean, that's not going to happen again. I mean, I guess it could realistically, right? Anything can happen twice. But and Oklahoma State shoots 36% from the field. Like, I mean, Texas was averaging 0.74 points per possession. It's the worst offensive showing of the year. Oklahoma State shoots 0.83 points per possession. One of their worst offensive showings of the year. I would expect this to be a better offensive showing from both teams. Now, as far as the over for the full game, I am a little concerned in Oklahoma State. I felt like yesterday Baylor gave them opportunities, and outside of a few pretty clutch threes by Cade late, and then when the game got out of hand, they ended up getting some easy transition buckets to pad on the total. I felt like Oklahoma State really struggled in the half court. Now, as long as Texas can get back defensively to stop transition baskets, I just feel like Oklahoma State's going to struggle to score again. So you would say based on this, I'd probably lean Texas, right? But man, it is tough to want to jump in front of this Oklahoma State team as far as winnings and losses. This team makes a lot of clutch shots. But ultimately, yeah, I would lean Texas' team total over in that one. Let me think. So I covered, I guess, most of the big games. I know the few games are about to tip. Ohio, Buffalo. I'll be honest, guys. I really liked what I've seen from this Ohio team. I think they are very live in this game. The problem for me is, and always a spread, and I always tell this to people, if you're going to bet a spread that's 2.5 in college basketball, like unless you like have to bet pregame numbers for whatever reason, like you have to go out or whatever, you're not going to be watching your phone, not going to be watching the games. Whenever a spread is 2, sub 3, sub 4, and a total is in the 160s, there's very rare scenarios where a team like that goes wire to wire, okay, and wins. So what does that mean? That means that if you want to bet Buffalo, why not wait to bet Buffalo in game? I mean, geez, if Ohio goes literally up 4-0, that Buffalo money line will change from, what is it, minus 145 or minus 150. It'll change to about minus 120. And then if one team goes on a 10-0 run, this is a game that's going to include a lot of runs from both teams. Okay, Ohio's very streaky, Buffalo's very streaky, total super high. I will tell you this though, I really loved what I've seen from this from this Ohio team specifically recently. I mean, look who this team's beaten in this tournament. On 1 second. So first of all, they absolutely dick slapped Kent State. And then Toledo, I mean, you might look at the score and it might say 7. I mean, this game was not close. It was not close at all. Okay. Ohio led by more than 15 for most of the game. Just absolutely dick slapped them. Now, from an offensive perspective, Ohio has just been a machine. Okay. Led by their absolute stud was Peterson. Preston. Imagine me saying Peterson. So Jason Preston's just been an absolute stud, and he's gotten some other help as well from Vanderplas, and some other guys as well have been obviously helping out their overall scoring. For them to take off that huge lead against Toledo, for me, projects well for how this game against Buffalo will go. Look, I get it. Buffalo is the cream of the crop in this conference, and they always are, and they play much better defense than some of these other teams. But I'd argue Buffalo even got lucky against Akron yesterday. I mean, they snuck that out, more than ever, and I think that people might forget, like if you bet Buffalo yesterday, because Buffalo's, I get it, been a cover machine recently. You kind of got bailed out, right? You get bailed out by Akron, so you kind of, at minimum, you have a bad perception of Buffalo for a game, or maybe for part of the game. You're like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? And then they cover, and you're like, oh, it's okay. I mean, this Ohio team is better than Akron. Okay, they're much better than Akron, and they're playing much better than Akron. For me, at 2.5, like Ohio is very live for me. I don't know. For me, this big game is basically a coin flip. I can get 2.5 money line with Ohio. Team that's playing better, shooting the lights out. To me, it's a good spot to back on Ohio, in my opinion. But ultimately, hope that Georgia Tech gets up and hedges with it if you can get money line Florida State. Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech for me in this spot is primed to score points. I know that they're the underdog here in Florida because Florida State just speeds the game up, and Georgia Tech just has a lot of sharpshooters, especially from outside with sniping. But for me, I guess overall, what's the last game left? I mean, Utah State, San Diego State. I'm really indifferent to that game. To me, the line's fair as it is at 2 and 128. Georgetown, Creighton. I'd argue. I'd argue for some slight value, believe it or not, on Georgetown's team total under. I'd assume, and I don't have the number exactly in front of me, but I would assume Georgetown's team total is about 66.5. Does that make sense? 60? No, it would probably be like 67.5. I would assume it's about that. And the reason I said it is because this team just really struggles to score against this Creighton Blue Jays team. They did it a minimum once this year where they really struggled to find their range. And Creighton's big enough inside to not let Georgetown's big man get what he wants inside. And ultimately, I know Creighton's going to speed this game up, or both. This game is going to play fast, but ultimately, might be 68.5. Yeah, I think that actually might be 68.5. Yeah, I mean, Qudus Wahab, to me is the big difference in this game, and Creighton's typically slowed this dude down. So Georgetown would just have to shoot the lights out from 3 for them to go over that team total number. As far as the spread goes, I don't like Creighton because they live and die with the 3, and I don't ultimately want to handicap a game based on them making 3s, whether they cover 9 or not. But ultimately, Georgetown's team total under would make sense, especially if it got to like 69.5. Okay, so other than that, I think that's basically every game we've run down here. Games are about to tip, so I don't want to keep you guys from watching those as well. Thank you, everybody, for popping in. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. As you guys know, Cincy +4 is my best bet for the day against Wichita. But other than that, as always, folks, gamble responsibly. It's a big slate today. It's only 20 games, but it's an important big slate today. Don't get your nuts twisted in a bind, having too much money at risk. Obviously, stay within your means. And of course, like I said, gamble responsibly. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow talking the 5 or 6 game slate with Holden, and then we'll be back tomorrow night talking the brackets. Other than that, all good stuff. Godspeed ahead. And as always, folks, stay safe. I'll catch you guys next time, guys. Later.